Hello, my name is Jesse Beltran, and I am the spokesperson for the International Center Against Abuse of Covert Technologies. That's ICAACT.org, ICAACT.org. Our mission is to bring attention and public awareness on a worldwide scale to the general population about the abuses of covert electronic terrorism. Along with myself, and through the help of two fellow technicians, we began our international testing and survey on a global basis. I'd like to introduce Peter Rosenhall.
Hi, my name is Peter Rosenhall. I'm with the International Center Against the Abuse of Covert Technologies. Right now we're conducting scans across the U.S. and Europe.
And next I'd like to introduce Lars Drugard.
Hello, my name is Lars. I'm from Denmark in Europe, and I'm going to do the testing in Europe, more specifically in Germany. Here's a little video clip of Jesse explaining the 3 phases of the testing.
Thank you for coming. My name is Jesse Beltran. I'm a retired Sacramento City firefighter paramedic, and basically what we're going to be doing today is what is called radio frequency scanning. So I'm going to go ahead and explain how it works. Okay, there's 3 phases to this. There's a preliminary scan, and what that is we check for radio frequency emissions utilizing what is called the JM20 Pro radio frequency detector. And if you come up positive on that, we'll use a frequency counter, which will give us the frequency that it is picking up or emitting on. Okay. So phase 2 requires this. If you come up positive on the scan, you're still going to need the medical imaging. So you're going to have to obtain an X-ray, an MRI, or a CT, depending on what. But most of the time, you probably only need an X-ray, which is very affordable. It's about between $60 and $80. Okay, and we can help you, guide you to where you need to go to get that done. Okay, but that's the part that needs to happen on phase 2. Phase 3 is we need to go in a controlled environment and do further testing, so that when we go to court, we can say we're 100% absolutely positive that this person, this human being, is emitting an RF frequency. And the purpose here is to give you evidence. Okay. Because if you want doctors, anyone in the medical field, the scientific community, or the law enforcement, or even those in politics, or those in positions of power, even pastors, for example, you really need evidence. Because if you go and tell them the story, it's just a story to them. Okay? And they're going to think you're nuts. That's the bottom line. I hate saying that, but that's the truth. And that's what those who are doing this to us want to have. They want us all to be labeled crazy, so you lose all rights. Okay?
The following are the results of our tour when we started our radio frequency scanning across America in Sacramento, California. Here are some test results that came up positive of victims of domestic terrorism. This is Christopher, 5 years old. Positive in his left shoulder area. He also came up positive in his right scapula area. His father states this was done to him in a dental office when he received a shot. Our next victim, who came up positive for domestic terrorism, is Bonnie Kellerby. Bonnie has been a victim for over a decade. She came up positive for RF transmission in her right TMJ. In addition, she came up positive near her left TMJ. She also tested positive for RF transmission on her left and right shoulder region. The following who came up positive is David Gonzalez. David came up positive in his right shoulder region. Our next victim is Richard Northern. Richard Northern has been a victim for over 20 years. Richard Northern came up positive for RF transmission near his left TMJ area. This is Barbara, Barbara flew in from out of the country to have an RF scan. Barbara has been tortured over the years in many, many ways, what most women call a silent rape. She came up positive in her lower lumbar, her lower back area. She can pinpoint with needlepoint accuracy where she believes an implant is, and you can see by our RF testing it comes up positive. Another area that Barbara complained with pinpoint accuracy was the back of her neck, and sure enough we came up with positive radio frequency emission in our preliminary scan.
In Europe, we started the testing tour in the German capital, Berlin, where I met up with the Swedish lawyer Dr. Henning Witte, who was going to interview the victims while I was doing the testing. The first person tested was Waldemar. He tested positive in both sides in the TMJ area. Und jetzt ein bisschen weg davon. Ja. Noch tiefer. Von der Antenne weg. Next up was Monica. Monica tested positive in her right TMJ area. Zur Antenne wieder hin. Und die Antenne weg. Zur Antenne wieder hin. Sieht man das auf dem... Ja. Ist da was? Ja. Here I'm testing Gisela. Gisela came up positive in the TMJ area on both sides. Sieht man das?
Man hört es vor allem, jetzt sieht man es auch, ja. Das ist eindeutig.
She also came up positive in her lower back. I tested both Gisela's children and they both came up positive. This is the testing of Sabine. Sabine came up positive in her right TMJ area. Ans Gerät wieder rantreten. Wieder zurück.
Nee, veränder du mal deinen Arm überhaupt nicht, Lars. Geh mal jetzt wieder weg. Nichts verändern, Lars. Zurück.
Sabine also tested positive on her back at the left shoulder area.
Jetzt wieder weg. Wieder zurück. Noch näher ran. Ja, das ist doch ziemlich eindeutig. Wieder weg.
The following are victims of domestic terrorism who came up positive on radio frequency scans on our tour through Chicago, Illinois. Our first victim is Angela. Angela came up positive on her left temporal area. Our next victim is Sandrea. Sandrea came up positive in her right temporal region.
Positive RF on the right temporal region.
In addition, she came up positive on her right shoulder for emission of radio frequency.
Positive RF on the right shoulder.
Our next victim is Mike. His torture began at approximately age 19.
Alright, let me just zoom in on
He
it.
came up positive in his right temporal region.
go. Okay.
Mike also came up positive in his left temporal area.
We ended our European testing tour in Hamburg in northern Germany. In Hamburg, this young man came up positive in his left TMJ area.
Ja, wieder rangehen. Ja, wieder weggehen. Wieder rangehen. Das ist schon eindeutig. Und dann bist du wieder weg davon. Ran. Ja, wieder Signal. Weg davon.
As we continued our testing across the United States, our next stop was Kenosha, Wisconsin. In Kenosha, Wisconsin, we had several people come up positive. Our first victim is Debbie. Debbie had complained of being a victim of domestic terrorism for many years. She suffered from... Debbie came up positive for radio frequency transmission in our preliminary testing near her right flank area. Our next victim is Lisa. Lisa, just as Debbie, has been complaining of being tortured for many years. Lisa came up positive near her left temporal region, just above her ear, and she came up positive near her right temporal area. Lisa gave testimony at the Presidential Bioethics Commission in Washington, D.C.
Dr. Francis Collins is the director of the National Institutes of Health.
Let me just say a word, though, about neuroimaging. Certainly the problem of incidental findings, though, is an enormous, obvious overlap with the genetic situation. MRI scans often give things you didn't expect, and often they're things you don't know what to do with. UBOs, as they're called, unidentified bright objects. Do you want to have one of those in your brain? Well, you might, and what are you going to do with that? Very difficult to say.
My name is Lisa Becker. I am also from Wisconsin. I have been a non-consenting test subject in military medical research. I, too, believe my experience is referred to as no-touch torture, utilizing defense technologies. I'm asking you to help initiate a congressional investigation. We've all come a long way. This is what is needed. We want to have the accounts of this extreme human rights abuse that's going on in our country documented and heard, all of the accounts.
I've been a human subject for experimentation for almost 2 years, and I've contacted Dr. Hall. I stand with a very large group. Excuse me, I'm very nervous, but I'm very tired of having my rights taken away, and thank you for hearing me.
Dr. John Hall.
My name is Dr. John Hall. I'm a medical doctor from Texas. As a physician, relative to some of what you're hearing today in the community, we are seeing an alarming rate of complaints of use of electromagnetic weapons, microwave auditory effects, silent sound spectrum, EEG cloning, which has taken the lab out of the laboratory and into the home. Most of these, from the research that we reviewed, can be done remotely. It seems to be more weapons research than medical research.
I'd like to speak about what this all means. Currently, in our preliminary testing, we're finding that between 30 and 40% of individuals are coming up positive, emitting a radio frequency emission. If another human being was to impede on another person's body, it would be considered rape. And rape would never be called a misdemeanor. This type of intrusion on any human being is no different. In addition, I have a colleague who ran for California Assembly, District 9 here in Sacramento County. He was a former Marine. When we took him various pieces of evidence, he says that our military utilized this technology on prisoners caught in Afghanistan. They were captured, put unresponsive, and injected with an RFID device. Then they were let go or allowed to escape. They used this for reconnaissance information. What this means is this technology sends and receives information. This technology destroys everything that this country is about. It destroys freedom of speech, freedom to practice religion in privacy. It destroys attorney-client privilege, due process. What this means is, how can you implement due process if there's no attorney-client privilege? This type of technology destroys our civil liberties, our Constitution, and the foundations of our government in one fell swoop. Under the Patriot Act, Section 802, it was extended to further define domestic terrorism. Prior to that, it only addressed international terrorism. This technology falls under domestic terrorism. What this means as far as implications on society, not only here in the United States, but globally, is this impedes on the very definition of what a human being is. This impedes and leads to complete control over a person. Freedoms, thoughts, the way we define ourselves as humans is completely destroyed. When you take away the ability of an individual to reject the possibility of having an implant of an RFID device, what you are saying that is they are no different than animals. We chip our dogs, we chip our cats. What you're essentially saying is they are no different than animals.
Thousands of government-sponsored experiments did take place at hospitals, universities, and military bases around our nation. Some were unethical, not only by today's standards, but by the standards of the time in which they were conducted. They failed both the test of our national values and the test of humanity. Informed consent means your doctor tells you the risk of the treatment you are about to undergo. In too many cases, informed consent was withheld, for these experiments were kept secret. And they were shrouded not for a compelling reason of national security, but for the simple fear of embarrassment. And that was wrong. The United States of America offers a sincere apology to those of our citizens who were subjected to these experiments, to their families, and to their communities. When the government does wrong, we have a moral responsibility to admit it. The duty we owe to one another to tell the truth and to protect our fellow citizens from excesses like these is one we can never walk away from. Our government failed in that duty, and it offers an apology to the survivors and their families, and to all the American people. As the committee report says, there are circumstances where compensation is appropriate as a matter of ethics and principle. I am committed to seeing to it that the United States of America lives up to its responsibility. Our greatness is measured not only in how we so frequently do right, but also how we act when we know we've done the wrong thing, how we confront our mistakes, make our apologies, and take action. That's why this morning I signed an executive order instructing every arm and agency of our government that conducts, supports, or regulates research involving human beings to review immediately their procedures in light of the recommendations of this report and the best knowledge and standards available today, and to report back to me by Christmas.
When our leaders openly admit to non-consensual experimentation on human beings, such as Bill Clinton, now is it fair to apologize for a crime and then continue them? At least one politician anticipated this. This is Senator Joe Biden predicting a judge would have to rule on whether or not it would be constitutional to implant a human being.
Can a microscopic tag be implanted in a person's body to track his every movement? There's actual discussion about that. You will rule on that, mark my words, before your tenure is over.
As the late Martin Luther King would say, injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. Martin Luther King believed in the dream. He believed in the dream of truth, prosperity, and equality for everyone. It's time for everyone to wake up now. We must all in order to save the dream. And in order to save the dream, we have to seek the truth. And the truth is what we need to push forward. And we all need to gather across the board, all races of society. This is not an issue of race anymore. This is an issue about human beings. The right to be human. This is an issue about preserving the free will of human beings. And we ask all of you to give us your support in order to ensure that we save that dream. Thank you.